Sweet sound and barrel and dippily heavily ever to back up Libby bells and sweet sound and barrel and dippily heavily ever to back up Libby bells and Bobby, she was prettier than Venus. She was so beautiful. Sweet sound and barrel and dippily heavily ever to back up Libby bells and sweet sound and barrel and dippily heavily ever to back up Libby bells and she was love, 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 she was love.
Hello lovely viewers, welcome to another episode of the Learned Counsel program, and I am your host for today, Anastasia and Prof. Today we are going to discuss another beautiful book called the i-llegal, Legal Literacy for the Everyday Man, especially the chapter 4 of this book. So have you ever signed a contract and then thought, oh no, this is not what I signed up for? Or have you ever signed a tenancy agreement and then you came back to realize these are not the number of years that you agreed to? Then this chapter is for you. Here with us today to discuss this book with is the author himself. He is a physicist, a scientist, a biologist, a lawyer, a senior lecturer, and an author of over 40 books. With me here in the studios today is Professor Lawyer Nana Oppong. Hello, Professor. Welcome to the show. You're looking awesome.
Thank you, and you're looking very beautiful. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine, thank you. I hope you're also fine.
Very good.
Okay, so Prof, today we are going to discuss the i-llegal, Legal Literacy for the Everyday Man, and we are going to delve into the chapter 4 of this book that deals with the 3 C's. So first off, Legal Literacy for the Everyday Man. What motivated you to write this book?
In the first place, as you know, everything that we do is covered by law. Whether you like it or not, the whole society is run by laws. Criminal law, family law, business law, all kinds of laws regulate our lives. So if you want to succeed in the modern world in business, if you want to have good, stable relationships with less trouble, with less conflict, then you need to understand law. And I figured out that a lot of people were ignorant of the laws that govern them. Now, even the thinking behind the laws, the rationale, the philosophies, the justifications. And so I wrote the book i-llegal as a way of looking at how lawyers think, how the law works, the rationale, the culture of lawyers and judges and people who know the law and apply the law. So it's a book that you need to read in order to be competent in the law. And I'm talking about not just Ghana law, I'm talking universal law, like the laws of America, of Canada, of England, France, everywhere. It's the type of thinking about law within the law that you need to understand in order to have a good life.
Okay, thank you, Prof. So thank you for that insight. Moving on. Prof, in your book, you advise that we choose business partners not based merely on affection. You write, and I quote, "This means that not everyone can be a good business partner. Certainly, in highly specialized ventures which require skill, training, and experience, not everyone is good enough. Do not choose your business partners based merely on affection. A wish does not profit me." Prof, what exactly did you want to imply by that?
A lot of times we are moved to do business, to enter into transactions and all kinds of projects with people that we're comfortable with because we know them, because we like them, because they are related to us in one way or another. But if you want to do true business, then it should be based upon skills, competence, and the contributions of the person.
Yeah.
If you are, for example, trying to play in a league, or you're organizing a league, you don't want to go call up your relatives and say, who wants to play the football? Rather, you want to look for those who are very competent.
Yeah.
If you have a car, a vehicle, and it's a commercial vehicle, you want someone who is a commercial driver to drive the vehicle. The same thing, if you have a problem, medical problem, you want a competent doctor. You don't want to show up the next person in your village or town or neighborhood because you think,
No.
yeah, so that's the point. Competence, but applicable or relevant competence in a particular context is very, very important. Which means that if you want to succeed in business, it's not enough just to start and say, oh, I have people with me who wish to do the work, who want to do the work. No, but people who can do the work and do it well in accordance with your plan and your budget and the context and the requirements of the law. That's what I'm writing about.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Prof. Moving on, you tell us under clarity, which is the first C in the book, that in drafting contracts, we should include everything that we need, even in prenuptials. You tell us that never leave out a significant term because the other person says things like, it's obvious, you can't trust me, and things like that. But then in the last paragraph, you add that even in prenups, we should add everything that we want. You later come during the initialing of a document, you tell us it is not always necessary when you are dealing with qualified professionals. Prof, I'm a little confused. Where do you draw the line when it comes to trust?
The only trust that you can have is a trust that is clear in a document. So in other words, you have to make sure that everything that you want is clearly stated in the document, which is agreed to by every person. And for the avoidance of doubt, you always repeat certain terms. So you say, for example, I want to give you that orange. But it's not enough to say that orange. But you say that orange described as, then you describe the orange, right? So the color, the make or the origin, and the volume, the size, and all of that. And then you say an orange stamped by, right?
Yeah.
A picture of which is attached to this. You have to make sure everything's clear. Once everything is clear in the document, then now you can trust the professionals to put in the professional language, the package the way it's supposed to be packaged. But you have to tell the professionals what exactly you want to go into an agreement. And if you don't have a professional doing it, and it's just you and someone, then for the avoidance of doubt, use simple language and repeat yourself, right? We shall go to New York at 12 p.m. When? How are we going? Who's paying for it, right? And what happens if we say New York, but New York is huge, so which part of New York? Are we talking about New York, or the New York, the state? Is it New York, the city? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So clarity is critical in every contract. In fact, clarity is contract. Without clarity, you can't have a contract. If there's ambiguity, if there's confusion, if there's division, and if it's doubt, then where is a contract? Because a contract is an agreement of two or more minds on the same thing, So if I am thinking blue and you're thinking red, that's not the same thing.
No.
If I'm thinking car and you're thinking motorcycle, that's not the same thing. If I'm thinking woman and you're thinking girl, that's the same thing. So let us understand what we're talking about. If you're talking about budgets, how much? If you're talking about time, which day, which year? If we're talking about places, specify it. If you're talking about processes and procedures, which is the first step, the second step, the third step, sequentially, logically, so that everybody's on the same page. Because you don't want a situation where someone says, well, I wasn't thinking like that. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. That wasn't my intention. That's not what I meant. Every contract should avoid that. I didn't mean it. It was a mistake. That wasn't my intention. It's ambiguous. There's a rule of law which says that if you draft a contract, and if you draft it and it's ambiguous, there's doubt. When you go to court, the court will interpret it against your interest. Because you created that doubt, so you shouldn't benefit from that doubt.
Yeah. So Prof says clarity is contract. Thank you very much for that, Prof. Now on the second C, carefulness. You mentioned clever drafting. What exactly is clever drafting?
In business, everything is about self-interest. So in other words, everybody doing business with you is trying to maximize your best interest or self-interest, and you're trying to maximize your self-interest or best interest. So everybody's trying to get their point of preference in it.
Yeah.
Things that will favor them. Nobody wants to write a contract or be part of a contract where they lose everything. So I'm trying to maximize my interest, you're trying to maximize your interest. So whoever is drafting the contract wants to put in words and phrases and orders that would ensure that they will get the maximum benefit from the contract.
What they want.
So when people are clever, then they'll put in, if they benefit from ambiguity, then they'll put in ambiguous phrases. For example, words like wonderful, beautiful, adorable. They could mean anything to anyone. So
Yeah.
if you agree and you put in, I'll give you a wonderful car, I'll give you a wonderful house, I'll give you a beautiful this, without specifying the type, the quantum, the location, and you have a problem. So when it suits some people, they go for generalities. And when it doesn't suit them, then they go for specifics.
Yeah.
So you have to look at your interest and see what helps me. Is it ambiguity or is it clarity, specifics or generalities? But in all these things, I told you before that you should avoid doubt. But sometimes doubt can be good for the clever writer, because in that doubt, they can manipulate relationships, transactions, and achieve outcomes that may work to their interests. So you have to make sure that you're very careful. Number one, who you select to deal with. Look, if you go and choose the devil as your partner, the devil always wins in a relationship where you take something from the devil. As soon as you take something from the devil, you are beholden to him and he would destroy your life. So in the first place, don't go and take the devil as your partner. That's what I'm saying. You have to be very careful who you choose as your partner. Don't choose a criminal as your partner. Don't choose a dictator as your partner. Don't choose someone who doesn't really care as your partner. That's the first thing. Don't choose an incompetent person as your partner. So be very careful.
Yeah.
Then number two, when you're drafting the agreement, you have to draft it in such a way that it fulfills the mission or the objective that you want to achieve. If you want to travel, for example, from A to B and someone is partnering with you to do the journey, then make sure the relationship that you have with that person enables you to achieve your goal of traveling from A to B. If you choose someone who will take you to C or distract you or destroy your vehicle or destroy wherever it is that you'll never get to B, you're in the wrong place. Then the contract must reflect what you intend to do. And that's how the content, the how, the what, the where, the when, the who, responsibilities, risks, rewards, all of that should be clarified. So you should be careful as to your partner, be careful as to the partnership, and be careful as to what you get out of it.
Wow, I'm really learning a lot from you, Prof. Okay, so Prof, how often does this clever drafting happen?
What happens all the time when people are smart and they have smart lawyers? People are dumb, they don't do anything clever. But once you have people who are looking after their own selfish interests and they know the law and they think that they can get an advantage by language, by drafting, they will do it. It happens every day.
Wow, wow. Prof, one of the parts of this particular chapter that I found very interesting was the need for consistency in words and conduct. Before I read this book, I didn't know that. I thought that as soon as it's written, it's written. There cannot be any extras. But then this part of the book teaches me that if you write it and you do otherwise for a long time, it's likely to change. Prof, we know that Ghanaians have like certain attitudes that they always do. Like Ghanaians are tend to be hospitable, for instance. In cases where this hospitality meets the law, is there a meeting point? In cases where these attitudes meet the law, is there like a meeting point or they never meet at all?
The law is what people do that is not frowned upon by society. And that is not frowned upon by any book, statute, regulation, and so on. So if people are hospitable, the law is never against hospitality. Do you understand? That kindness, good behavior, morality, that's all part of the law. But as to the issue of conduct modifying contracts, you see, a contract has to be performed. Because we don't do contracts in the air. You know, contracts, it has to do with something real, project, action. So if you say to me, for example, that we should always, every morning, we should go to LA primary school, and that's what we're supposed to do. That's the contract. But in every morning, we don't go to LA primary school. We end up going to Catholic primary school. And you don't say anything. I don't say anything. Over time, then our conduct suggests that we have modified the location.
Yeah.
Even though we say we're supposed to go to LA primary school, we're not going to LA primary school. We're going to Catholic primary school. So in effect, if tomorrow, after a long time, you say to me, whoa, you breached a contract, or you're supposed to go to LA primary school, it says here, black and white, is them, then the conduct would belie what you're claiming, because the conduct has modified what we wrote. So in other words, contracts are to be performed, and when they're being performed, that is a contract if you don't object to it. If I'm supposed to give you 50 pesos or 50 cents for something, and I always give you 45, and you don't object, after a while, the 45 becomes the price.
Yeah.
If you don't want to take 45, you say it to me. Or if you're taking 45, thinking that the 5 will come later, you have to say it.
Yeah.
Do you understand? But if you accept 45, no complaints, year after year, after a while, I'll come to you and say, well, no. We said 50, but we changed it to 45, and I've been paying 45. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So conduct is very, very important in life.
Wow, Prof. Thank you very much. Conduct is very important in life. Prof, lastly on that, you tell us to have an emergency or alternative plan for the rescue in the event that something goes seriously wrong. What does that mean in reality, especially when it comes to business? What does that look like?
That's why if you look at life itself, it's that man proposes, God disposes. There are many times when we plan, we intend, we have projects, and we will do it this way, that way, but we're not able to do it because contingencies apply. Weather spoils, government changes the rules, there is an attack, there's a fire, there's an emergency, things go crazy. Yeah, unpredictable, things that are beyond your control. In the law, we call them force majeure, which means it's an act of God. So when you're doing a contract, you always want to make sure that you anticipate that at some point there are issues that you have not considered, which may crop up. I mean, you're not God, so you can't do a perfect contract. So you put in a clause, anything that is beyond your reasonable anticipation, foreseeability, and therefore beyond your control, you should not be held responsible for it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So a reasonable contract always anticipates that when there is an emergency or something beyond the control of the parties, that they absolve from responsibility for it. At the same time, in business, there's always an elastic way of looking at things, in that whenever you're doing a project, you should allow more or less 10-15% contingency, just in case. So let's say you think the price is going to be $1,000 for something. It's possible it may be $1,000, but due to circumstances where there's inflation, demand goes up, supply goes down, wherever, 15% or more price costs will be added to it. So you should be flexible in how you price your things, especially when it comes to future deals and transactions.
Yeah.
If you hook yourself up to a fixed price, no room for negotiation, no elastic way of margining, then you have a problem when things change. So in every contract, you have to sit back and relax and ask yourself, wait a minute, can I deliver within the time frame? Is it possible the time frame will be extended? What happens if things change? What can change? Who's in charge? How much control do I have? You think like that, then you apply contingency rules.
Yeah.
And so if things change, you're already prepared for them.
Yeah. Wow. Wow, Prof. Like, I'm really learning a lot, and I hope the viewers are too. Now, Prof, on the last C, control. The first advice you give us is to evaluate and to monitor. It is no good sending children to fetch water if you do not check to see whether they return with the water or not. To ensure that you are on track or to see where the bottlenecks are, it is always a good practice to monitor the performance of other parties' work from time to time in order to ensure that things are going as they should. The question here is, Prof, is it really foolproof when it comes to things being monitored, especially when the monitoring and the evaluation is not done directly?
whatever you're doing, you have to have a way of controlling it. Remember, we're talking about control.
Yeah.
You can't have control if you can't see the processes from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
You have to be able to monitor what you're doing, what somebody else is doing on your behalf at every stage of the process. I'm not saying you should micromanage it, but sometimes it's necessary to see the micromanagement process so you would know this person is doing what he or she's supposed to do right on time, so you can actually correct mistakes as they happen in real time. You don't wait for the building to collapse before you see that you have a problem. So monitoring, setting up systems to enable you to monitor progress or the lack of it in your contracts, in your projects, is very, very important. And if you can't see what people are doing when they're working for you, if you can't understand what they're doing when they're working for you, then you have a problem. It means you lack control. And if you lack control, that will bring problems of risk. Because how can you control risk if you can't control the processes and the procedures and how things are being done? So in every contract, there should be a way of management so you can actually control what's happening through yourself directly or through third parties.
Yeah. Before we go for break, Prof, how can big companies do this more effectively? That is, monitoring and evaluating.
Even big companies have more processes and money and staff and applications that are able to do that. It's not just big companies. Everyone who's doing something should make the monitoring and evaluation a part of the contract, a part of the project, a part of the task. It's not something separate. It's something that should be built into what you're doing. So you say, okay, we're going to do a number of things, 1 to 100. And we'll be monitoring from 1 to 5, and then 5 to 10, and from 10 to 20, and so on and so forth. Every part of the process should be logically scrutinized to make sure. It's like you're building a house.
Yeah.
You just can't say, well, I won't monitor the foundation, I only monitor at the top. No, you have to start monitoring from the very beginning, step by step. This is required, it is done. That is required, it is done. And you tick and tick and tick. And if it's not done, then you don't move on to the next step. That's intelligence.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Viewers, I know you are enjoying this. I'm enjoying this as much as you are, but we have to go for a short break. We'll be right back.
Sweet sound the barrel, dippily, heavily, better to back up, be building. Sweet sound the barrel, dippily, heavily, better to back up, be building. Bobby, she was prettier than Venus. She was so beautiful. Sweet sound the barrel, dippily, heavily, better to back up, be building. Sweet.
Welcome back, viewers, to the Learned Counsel program. We are still interviewing Professor Nana Oppong on his book, The i-llegal, Legal Literacy for the Everyday Man. We are doing the chapter 4 of this book, that is the 3 C's. If you are just joining us, you are not too late. We have more coming up. If you have been with us from the beginning, stay tuned. You have already been wowed. You are going to learn more and more from now on. So, Professor, welcome back. So, we have to delve right into the questions now. So, Prof, the chapter 4 of your book is like an advice that every person looking forward to starting a business must have. How available is this information?
Okay, so in the first place, logic is an aid to law. The i-llegal is how to think like a lawyer, but how to think like a lawyer is also a function of how to think properly. So what you're doing is, if you don't have access to the i-llegal or other law books similar, then what you should do is actually think through the processes of the things that you're doing. So you need to have clarity, as the chapter says, and you need to have control, carefulness. You can't be careful enough. You can't say, well, I know this person, I trust him. You can just go ahead, bring it to me, I'll sign. I trust you. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to take your time, read the things that are given to you to understand, to make sure you understand. If you don't have clarity, ask for explanations. Yeah. Words mean something in law. Every word has a specific meaning. It has a history to it. It has a purpose. It has a function. It has a way it's going to be interpreted. So make sure the words are clear to you and they mean what you intend them to mean, or the person intended them to mean to you. Yeah. Clarity. Then be careful, I was saying before, about who you choose to work with. If you choose the devil as your partner, you will have problems.
Yeah, sure.
Because no matter how clever your drafting is, how good your intentions are, he'll find a way to hurt you in the end. And number 2, make sure the people working for you are competent. that they are trustworthy, that they would do according to the plan. There has to be a plan. If there is no plan, then anybody can do what they want, and they'll tell you, well, I did the work. I spent the money. I did the project. I performed, didn't I? You said I should make a road. I made the road. What does it matter if the road is grade C? You didn't tell me to make grade A. It is good enough. People can drive on it. Can they drive it? So that's the thing. So the point is not about my book. My book is critical to understanding law for everyone. But it's not about my book. It's about intelligence. It's about using your ability to understand relationships, projects, context, procedures, sequences, and making sure they work for you. When you draft a contract, you're not writing a book. It's not an essay. It's not a story you're telling. It's about how we are going to achieve this from that to that to that. So it should be an applicable, workable, reviewable, measurable plan. And that is what we call intelligent contracting.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Prof, I know you are a God-fearing man. In the community where most of the things that we do are attributed to religion, where then do we draw the line? Because when someone gets this profit in their business, they say, God did it. And they believe that the deity they are serving has favored them in their business. But then you tell us that we shouldn't even trust pastors, etc. in our businesses. So where do we draw the line when it comes to business in a society that religion matters to us so much?
I think you have to think of the whole world as God's theater. But he's divided the theater in different things for different purposes. So there's a place we go to plant and get food. There's a place we go and build and stay and call homes and cities. There's a place that we call football fields and so on and so forth. When you're a farmer, how do you get the produce? You don't go around trusting religious people. You go around, you find the soil, you till it, and then you plant according to the seasons and the environment and fertilizer and irrigation and weedicide and blah. So there's a way of being a proper farmer. There's a way of becoming a good soldier. There's a way of becoming a good footballer. And all these ways are scientific, they're logical, right? So that's the same thing that I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your pastor or your imam or wherever. In the things that you believe they have expertise for which you will get benefit. I'm saying that everything has a way. God has put a systems disclosure, as it were, for everything. So for example, if you want to drive, there's a way to drive. You don't need to consult anybody who is not part of the driving process and knowledge. So if you want to do a contract or a business, do it according to known rules and procedures, which God wrote for us. I mean, we're not inventing anything in the universe. We're just discovering. So if you are going to do business, this is how we do business. You will not be the first person to do business. You're not the first person to do it. Everybody is doing business in one way or another. And there are ways which lead to perdition, which mean loss. And there are ways that lead to profit. So this is the way to profit. This is the way to harmony, to success, to stability. And that's what we're teaching. So if you want to get lost, then you go and start praying and pray and pray and pray. But don't do the right thing. If you do the right thing, it doesn't stop you from praying. It doesn't stop you from trusting in God. And you should be trusting in God no matter what you're doing, right? But if you want to be a farmer, learn about farming. If you want to be a footballer, footballing. If you want to be a lawyer, a scientist, wherever. And that's what we're saying in the book.
Thank you very much, Prof. Now, Prof, with consistency, as you mentioned, I think that it's inherent in human beings to sometimes be lenient here and there. Sometimes you feel like you should let this go. It doesn't really matter in cases like this. And I feel, or what I see may happen in the future in cases of contracts, that may be one of the biggest problems, is that like sometimes there will be leniency. So how then, as humans, do we maintain the consistency as it should be from time to time?
You set up systems that must be followed. If you say you want to produce a drink that would taste a certain way all the time, the bottling must be consistent. The procedures, the processes must be consistent. If you allow people to change the processes because of leniency, because it's inherent in human nature to be flexible, then it won't work. When it comes to business, you must operate like a machine. But, yes, you must also know we're not perfect.
Yeah.
But the only way to avoid inconsistency, products that change, tastes that change, standards that change, is to ensure that everyone working with you follows a process and a procedure. See, when you take certain drinks, they taste the same all the time, right?
Yeah.
And you like it because you know that's how it's supposed to be. And the reason is they don't allow people to change the procedure. So if it is half a cup of sugar plus half a cup of that, they always make sure it's measured, it's calculated, it's put into place. That's what you should do. But where human beings fail, you can't go around going crazy that they have failed. All you have to do is prevent failure, put in steps and procedures to make sure that people operate like machines when it comes to the business. But of course, they should be creative. They should be flexible. So the ability to be flexible and at the same time operate flawless like a machine, that is a challenge in business.
Yeah.
Right? If you can do that, then you can have people being creative. But once creative and we lay down what we're going to do, then everybody should follow the procedure. So in contracting, in business, in law, we expect you to do what you said you're going to do, to refrain from what you said you're not going to do. And we don't want you to be flip-flopping and saying, well, you see, I'm a human being, I'm imperfect. No, 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 that's not how it works. If you're imperfect, don't do business, get out.
Well, viewers, you've heard Prof. If you're imperfect, don't do business. All right, Prof. Now, on this, you say, since you are a businessman only for the purpose of making money, you must keep your eyes on the money at all times. Follow the money. If you are not making money, at least you should not be losing any. Prof, please elaborate. Follow the money. What does that mean? How does that look?
There is God Almighty, the greatest, our Creator, our Lord, everything. We know. We bow to Him. We're very grateful to be here. Then they invented money. And money controls us more. In fact, a lot more people worship the money than they worship the God who created everything. So money is very important.
Yeah.
We live in a monetized world. So if you're doing business, you're not doing business for charity, unless your business is charity, in which case it's a charity. But if it's real business, to make money, to make profit, to succeed in doing things, then you should be able to achieve, look, you should be able to achieve what you said you're going to achieve. So you think of everything as a destination.
Yeah.
You sign a contract, you do an agreement, you get involved in a project to achieve something. If you can't achieve that which you said you're going to achieve, then you have failed. And if you have failed, then why are you doing the same thing again and again and again and again? Nobody should be investing his time and money or resources or blood and sweat in failed and failing projects. That's my point.
True.
If it's not working, change the process, change the partnerships, change what you're doing. But if it's working, then it's very good. But don't get yourself involved in things that are failing. You think, oh, it's God. God doesn't make you fail. If you fail, something is wrong.
Yes,
So you should fix that which is wrong and continue. But in contract, if you're bound by something, then you're bound by it. You can't say, well, I miscalculated, I didn't understand it. That doesn't work. Once you agree, then you're bound by it. That's the point of a contract. A contract is something that you sign, you agree to, and then you go back home and you change your mind about it. Because if you do that, it's called breach of contract.
Yeah.
And you'll be made to pay for it in courts.
All right, Prof. Now, moving on. You say again in the book that not only must you make sure that work is being done, you must make sure that it is being done properly. To neglect, to waste, to cause big losses is human. This shows the need of control. But in the case of government, where there's a lot of bureaucracy and things like monitoring and even following the money, because as you say, if you lose the money, then your business might as well collapse. These things are done by other individuals. How then do we ensure effective control in governance?
The government is a number of people acting on behalf of the larger population.
Yeah.
And these people can't operate unless they work within laws and systems. And the systems can be logical, impartial, reasonable, or they can be illogical, personal, emotional, religious, wherever. So it depends on the type of government that we're talking about. If you're talking about democratic government, that is subject to the rule of law and subject to logic and processes and procedures that are fair, impartial, and just, and efficient and effective, then there must be procedures that say, well, if you take this money, then you must account for it. And you account for it through processes, through procedures. There must be supervision. There must be accountability. There must be recording. There must be transparency. There must not be corruption and hiding of things. So there is a way in which government money, processes, procedures can be held accountable, in which the money is properly used for the purpose. Yeah. And there's a way in which all of that can be thrown out and everything is done chaotically. Everything is done according to the whims of the people in power. So let's be very clear. Not all governments are created equal, and not all governments are operating on the basis of democracy and justice. So for just and democratic governments, the question is resolved through law. For unjust governments or dictatorships or whatever you call them, autocracies and things, then it doesn't really matter. For that, whatever the autocrat or the dictator says right is right. So that the money is all in his pocket anyway. You can't even follow the money because he's already hiding the money somewhere. Nobody knows where the money is. Yeah.
Okay.
But we, of course, we want democracy. We want a system of governance that's for the welfare of the people. And people actually should benefit from the expenditure of government. All expenditures of government should benefit the people. So if they don't, then we have to change that. We have to ensure that. I believe in a government that is run by smart people who are passionate and who fear God and who love their country and who are very brilliant in what they do, and they collaborate for the good of all. And they sleep well at night knowing that they did very well, and the people clap for them because they're good brothers and sisters.
Prof, then in cases where change of government does not really result in the picture of government that you paint to us here, then what can the people do?
The people must never give up in asking for, insisting on, and demanding change. So it is the people's duty, and you're right, to always ask for change so that the right government, the right action of government will take place. So if one government doesn't do the right thing, doesn't mean all governments won't do the right thing. The next government or the next and the next may do the right thing. Sometimes it takes a long time to effect proper change and a lasting change. But the idea that there's a problem and we give up is never a solution. The real solution to any problem is to remove the obstacle to progress, to get people who are competent to work. Not just competent, people who care to work together. Competent, caring, passionate people working for the nation. That's the solution. So if you're going to vote, you don't vote on the basis that I like the person. You should vote on the basis that this person will do the right thing. Unfortunately, a lot of times people just vote on the basis of emotions, not based on the basis of what is good for them. So if you are foolish in what you do, then you should bear the consequence of your foolishness. But if you reflect, then people should come together and say, wait a minute, we have a problem. Somebody is sick. A doctor is needed, right? So if you're not bringing in a proper doctor, then what are you doing? That is the solution to government. If you think of government as coming to solve the problem of people, then the people in charge of government should be people who are competent to solve the problem. But if you choose people not on the basis of competence, but on the basis of convenience or friendship or favoritism or tribalism, whatever you call it, then you have yourself to blame. In the end, when they can't deliver, you're stuck with your choice.
Yeah.
Because time and tide waits for no one.
Wow, wise words from Professor Nana Oppong. I think, Prof, sometime you should run for president in the future and then we'll see a lot of change. Okay, Prof, meaningful consent. So we have this thing where we say if someone consents to something, that means that they've agreed to it. There's another side that also says if someone consents to something under pressure or under any condition that forces the person to consent to the thing, then that means that there is no meaningful consent. Prof, we have the youth who are under the pressure of unemployment. They want jobs as so bad that they are willing to sign any contract or to sign any paper to get them what they want. In a case like this, how does the court help the youth, or are there any structures in place to help such a person get out of what they have gotten themselves into?
When the law talks about compulsion or duress or the use of force, we're not talking about general poverty, distress kind of things. No. We're talking about real, effective, present, strong pressure that makes you unable to decide. We're not talking about long-term things. Otherwise, everybody would say, well, I was under pressure, I was poor, I was ignorant, I was weak. No, that's not what the law is talking about. It's never an excuse to say, I was poor, I was unemployed, I had problems. No, the law excludes all of that. When we talk about pressure, let me give you an example. It's about a relationship of dominance where teacher, student, doctor, patient, preacher, congregation, and do you understand? Somebody has a gun to somebody's head, terrorism, right? These type of things, that is the type of pressure that the law is against. The law understands that there is a reason for people doing what they do. Even the criminal who goes to steal has a reason, right? Yeah. If you ask him, he'll say, whoa, I was hungry, and I like that car, and I've always wanted that car, and I didn't have money. And I was feeling ashamed. So there's a reason. The law does not accept those reasons. And we can't accept those as a society. Because if you start saying that if you have a problem and the problem moves you to do something, therefore it is justified, the whole world will collapse. Because somebody says, well, I was thinking that I deserved better because I was smarter than the guy who had the G-Wagon, and therefore I should have it. So I went and stole it. No. So consent means that you understand what you're doing, right? Yeah. And that you agree to do it, or you agree to participate in it because of your own self-interest, that it is good for you, that nobody put pressure. For example, if you want to drink water, you're thirsty, and this water is $1, but you are in a desert, and the person selling the water says, listen, I'm selling my water for $10, and if you want, if you don't want, please, hasta la vista, goodbye. So there's pressure on you, but it's not a pressure from the person selling the water to you. You have a problem with nature. Nature is putting pressure. Your hunger, your thirst is pressure, all right, but it's natural pressure. But he is taking advantage of the fact that you don't have water and he's selling water and it's $10. That's his price. If you then give him $10 and you take one, you drink and you're feeling better, you can't go back 1 year later into court and say, when I was in the desert, this man took advantage of me and he sold me the water. It was supposed to be $1. He sold me for $10. He cheated me, unconscionable. No, that's not how it works. We have reduced the excuse of pressure to very little areas and contexts in order to avoid people, floodgate. Everybody's saying, yeah, I was under pressure, I was under pressure. If you're young, unemployed, it doesn't mean you should go and steal, engage in crime, in fraudulent things, to pretend. That's not what it's, because you can also wait. You can also suffer like everybody else. Look for work. Demand change. Vote for the better government. Do you understand? Go to church, go to the mosque, pray, seek for help in charities. Come together, create something, let people, there is a way. It's not going to be easy, but criminality is never approved as a solution. And no justification can be offered for criminality in our society, because the society will collapse.
Yeah. Well, young people, I hope you are listening to Prof. And another set of wise words from Professor himself. Now, Prof, is there a structure for drafting a contract? If there is, please kindly take us through.
Yes, so every time you want to draft a contract, the first thing you do is, what do I want to do? So what's the project all about? And what do I need to execute a project? So you need to ask yourself about time frame that you want to do it, then how, the technical processes, if it's a building, the type of things you want to do, is it a story building you want to put up, what type of material you want to use, how much it's going to cost, who's going to build this, the carpenters, the masons, the electricians, the contractors, the engineers, the architects, all of that. Then you must ask yourself, this person that I'm going to do the contract with, what will be his role in that project? What will he do? Can I list it? Then you start listing. How much is it going to cost? When? And what happens if he can't deliver? What are my options? Do you understand? And what if the whole thing fails? What if I can't afford it? What do I? So you need to sit down and actually think of it as project management. And what you're writing down in terms of contract is just the management of the project according to the law. So the first thing you do about contract is, what exactly am I doing? Who am I going to do it with? How much is it going to cost? Where are we going to do it? What happens if there's a dispute? Who's responsible for what? What am I responsible for? How do I hold people accountable? How do I make sure the project succeeds? What people are incompetent? What people are sabotaging the thing? You have to think a lot of that, and you put that into writing. It doesn't have to be legalese. It just has to be, you shall be responsible for A, B, C. And for being responsible for A, B, C, I shall pay you E, F, G. And if I'm going to pay you E, F, G, then I want to make sure that this person and that person are monitoring and evaluating quality control, blah, blah, blah. So it is not very difficult to understand what a contract is about. It is difficult if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't know who you're working with, and you don't know what you have to execute a contract.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, Prof, the i-llegal book, well, I would love to read all the other 40 books that you've written, because I can't imagine the kind of knowledge I'll get from that. But if we want one of these books, tell us, where can we get it?
So right now, i-llegal is being sold online, and I don't want to limit it to one particular place, but the Learned Council would soon make it available in all the various bookshops, libraries, and other places where they sell books, because it's a practical book, and it's a textbook, in fact, on how to think like a lawyer, on legal literacy.
Wow. Well, viewers, you heard, it's going to be out there soon so that you can all get to buy it. Well, Prof, lastly, we are about to bring this to an end. So what is the advice you're going to give to people who are looking forward to start a business, people who are businessmen and businesswomen already, and the youth who are so hungry for money and want to get into business?
Youth should be very creative. They should come together, because if you're really brilliant, you work alone, you can't go very far.
Yeah.
So if you're brilliant, get other brilliant people, form projects, form companies, associations, and work together and share. Share work, share responsibility, share risks, so you can share rewards. That's the first thing I give to youth. And don't just choose anybody. Choose competent, dedicated, specialized people, so you work with them so you can achieve something. And have a specific project that you can deliver on. Don't have big projects you can't deliver on. Yeah. Now, in terms of how to survive in a society which is very difficult surviving, I think everybody should work harder and be determined. That don't look at the obstacles, look at the possibilities. As long as you look forward, you don't give up, and you're determined to succeed, one day you will succeed. Because nothing stops anyone from succeeding but doubt. And if you remove doubt and you say, I will make it, you'll definitely make it.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that advice. Well, very soon we've come to the end of this program. And one thing I got from Prof's last message was that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with people, and you go with competent people. Thank you very much, Prof, for your time, for the knowledge, for everything that you've given to us today. We appreciate you very much, and we hope we'll see you again. Okay, guys, I'm so sad to bring the show to an end. I've learned so much, and I wish I could continue to learn more. But if you want to know more, read the i-llegal book. Well, meet you same time next week on the Learned Council program. Bye.
Sweet sound and barrel dippily heavily velvet to back up Libby building. Sweet sound and barrel dippily heavily velvet to back up Libby building. Bobby, she was not, she was pretty.